Thank you all for joining us for the 2018 Beth Israel Congregation fundraiser, a tribute to Rabbi Dobrusin. Thanks for the memories. I am Jeff Bernstein. I was a board member here for 47 years, and it just felt that way, and had the honor of serving as president for 2 years, and now have the incredible honor of being a past president. I highly recommend that job. I'm looking forward tonight to an evening of fun, merriment, and to the opportunity to celebrate with and thank Rabbi Dobrusin for his 30 years of service to Beth Israel Congregation. With no further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Beth Israel Congregation President Bob Blumenthal.
Well, first of all, Elliot asked us to document this, so everyone smile. You smiling? Okay, thank you. I knew Rosh Hashanah was early this year, but June? I'm happy to welcome you all here for one of the many occasions on which we truly feel like a community. 8 days ago, Joe Schwab noted from this very bema that his was Rabbi Dobrusin's last bar mitzvah to oversee as senior rabbi. Now I can note with pride, if not particular happiness, that I am the last board president Rabbi Dobrusin has to deal with, even if it was only for 3 weeks. This is a time for both fun and appreciation, sadness and joy, and maybe even some meaningful moments. But before we get to that, I have some business to take care of. We should all thank the very hardworking fundraiser committee. I was on it too, but I did less than everyone else, so I'm comfortable leading these thank yous. The first biggest thank yous go to our fearless leaders, Linda Bender and Bunky Eliakim. Others, on what Linda and Bunky started calling the BCE for Best Committee Ever, included the ever-pragmatic Denny Carbeck, the irrepressible Jack Kaufman, the energetic Michelle LaShan, the resourceful Pam Landau, the ubiquitous Elliot Sorkin, and several former board presidents who served during Rabbi Dobrusin's tenure: Carol Feinerman, Jeff Bernstein, Matt Kaplan, Carlin Bender, and Bob Carbeck. A truly amazing group. Another amazing group is our dedicated and hardworking Beth Israel staff. Those who I'm aware of as having worked in particular on this event include Michelle Israel, who kept the incoming donations in the correct piggy banks, Beth Jarvis, who kept the incoming letters and ads on the correct pages in the program, Karen Balmer, who with her staff kept the incoming comestibles in the correct parts of the kitchen and is helping to distribute them today, and Susan Rockind and Sarah Klein, who are providing logistical support today. Thank you. Since this is a fundraiser as well as a tribute, I want to briefly tell you how we've done. A year ago, we all approved the current budget, which includes $30,000 from today's fundraiser. So that means that $30,000 from what we raise, no more and no less, goes into the current fiscal year's general fund. Back in October, Linda and Bunky and the BCE voted to commit any remaining funds to the chapel renovation project. The renovated chapel will, by the way, be named in honor of Rabbi and Ellen Dobrusin's fathers in recognition of Rob and Ellen's substantial seed donation to the renovation fund. We won't know the exact total for a couple of days, but it looks like we've raised over $100,000 net. And I just want to quickly mention, we will actually need all of that. The scope of the project includes, we hope, finally bringing air conditioning to our lower level where our kids spend time and where some of our employees work all summer. We also hope to improve the downstairs doors in terms of security and accessibility, so there are a few other things besides the chapel itself. We'll be meeting with the architect again over the summer. We'll have a better estimate of the actual cost at that time. If you're interested in being contacted about additional donations if they are needed, please let Elliot know. He's right there. There are too many of us to mention individually, but all of the sponsors are listed in the program booklet, and thanks so much to each and every one of you. We also thank all of those who purchased advertisements to help us towards our goal, and we thank everyone who bought tickets to this event, part of which also help us towards our goal and certainly makes today a more festive occasion. So, now the fun begins. Rabbi, I look forward to continued interaction with you as emeritus, but now it's time to look back in celebration and gratitude. Professor Bernstein, let's get this show on the road.
Thank you, Bob. He looked a lot younger 2 weeks ago before he became president. It is now my pleasure to introduce one of Rabbi Dobrusin's colleagues from the Ann Arbor Interfaith community to offer some words this evening. Reverend Dr. Susan B. King has been the co-director of the Interfaith Roundtable of Washtenaw County since 2011. Before that, she was chair of the board for the IRT for 11 years. She received her doctorate from Christ Church, England in spiritual psychology, and also served as a faculty member at the U of M program on intergroup relations and as associate director of the Life Sciences and Society program at the School of Public Health. Susan has worked very closely with Rabbi Dobrusin, and we're pleased to invite her to say some words in this tribute this evening. Susan?
So, it's very much an honor to be here and to be asked to speak on behalf of the Roundtable for a dear colleague, a great mentor, a teacher, and a worker in the interfaith world with us for the last 25 years. First, I want to thank you as a congregation for your wisdom to bring this man here 30 years ago. Your timing was perfect. The round gave him just 5 years to get his feet wet and into the role and become a founding member of the Interfaith Roundtable. He has gifted the interfaith community with an incredible richness of Jewish presence and allowed us to hear, to learn, to see, and to be present with the beauty of the Jewish faith tradition. He has opened eyes, ears, and hearts in this community in ways that few other religious leaders have been able to do. And two examples of this just in the last year of how that has played out last month at Rob's service. This bima was full of interfaith religious leaders who came not because they were particularly asked, but because they wanted to be here. And last Thanksgiving, we held the Interfaith Roundtable's Thanksgiving event here. Rob had the brilliant idea of holding an open house before. 2/3 of the people who came for the service came early to visit your congregation and community because of the work that you and Rob have done in the community. There's a lot of ways to do interfaith. And in many places and situations, people come, and I consider it like a gathering at a table. And people pick beautiful blooms from the gardens of their faith tradition, and they put them in a vase, and they sit them at the table, and we all gather around and we admire the beauty, and we listen and we talk. But when you cut flowers, they wilt, they die, they do not take root. Rob has not been a member of the Roundtable in our interfaith community like that. One of the things Rob has shared and taught us is that you bring the perennials from your tradition's garden. You tend them, you share them, you plant them amidst the other flowers, so that not only do all of our faiths flower together, but they come back stronger year after year. Rob has been that kind of gardener in the faith community, and we thank you, and we appreciate everything you have done with heart. Love.
Can you all hear me okay on this lapel mic? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to need to ask for you to all help me imagine something now, because we're about to enter the part of the evening where we play This Is Your Life, where the big spotlight goes shining over the crowd to see who it might be that we're picking for This Is Your Life. So imagine it's over here, and then it's here and there, and it's starting to settle in this area, because really, you're a very nice guy, but we didn't come to see This Is Paul's Life here tonight, right? And we're moving around, and we're moving, and there we go. Rabbi Rob Dobrusin, This Is Your Life. So what we have done is we have found a variety of people from your life who have known you and worked with you and really been very much a part of your experience here and outside the synagogue. And we've asked them all to come join us and talk about you a little bit and say a few words about what you've meant to them. So let's get going. Rabbi Dobrusin, do you recognize this voice?
Rob, it's great to be here this evening, and I want to start by recalling the memory of our parents, Manny and Gert Dobrusin, Zichronam Livracha. They had, each in their own way, some unique ways of dealing with the fact that both of their sons had become rabbis. Of course, Dad, when I first raised the idea that I was thinking of becoming a rabbi, gave me the encouraging line, "A rabbi? What kind of job is that for a Jewish boy?" And Mom, in her own inimitable way, had her own opinions about things, but one of the things that I always got a kick out of was that when she was in shul for the high holidays, and she saw the other mothers being surrounded by their children, their grandchildren, and she would go up to them and say, "You're so lucky to have your children here. My sons choose to work on the holidays." And one other thing that Mom would say frequently when she introduced us or talked about us was that she had two sons who were rabbis, but Rob was the real rabbi. And then every once in a while I would get a phone call, or I'd be talking on the phone, and she said, "By the way, do you have time for a rabbinic question?" And I would say in a somewhat nasty voice, "Why are you bothering me? Ask the real rabbi." To which she would say, "Well, I did, but I didn't like his answer." But seriously, all of the Chicago relations, Debbie and your nieces and nephews, and your great nieces and nephews, join me in wishing you all good things in the future. In the words of the psalmist, Telech mechayil el chayil. I've been asked to do the last sentence again, that we all wishing you that you go from strength to strength, and that God grant you success and blessing in all that you do in the future.
Who is it?
Who is it? It's your brother. So it didn't seem, Rob, like it took you very long to recognize that voice.
A couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes.
I didn't know if I was supposed to put another quarter in this.
Well, it is a fundraiser. So you mentioned your parents, and obviously Rabbi Dobrusin has spoken very lovingly about his parents from the Bima for so many years. How do you think they'd be feeling tonight to be seeing this and watching all that Rob has done for this community and this community coming out to honor him so much?
It would mean the world to them.
That's right. But it would mean even more. Can I answer too?
You can answer.
Exactly.
This is your life. It's your life. I mean.
To see her two boys on the Bima would have meant even more. That's what my mother would have said.
Yeah.
And my father would be asleep by now. And he would say what he always said to our rabbi, which is, the only reason I fall asleep is because I trust you. That's what he would say.
He said that to me as he slept through my senior sermon at JTS.
Yeah, but did he snore through yours?
Were you two in JTS together? How much did you overlap?
We overlapped for a couple of years, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And did you...
And they survived.
And the conservative movement survived? Loaded question, apparently. Loaded question. So, any last thoughts for your brother here on this really special night for all of us?
Just to be very serious for a moment, and I mean this sincerely. Thank you. Just to be very serious for a moment, and I mean this sincerely. Such inspiration and such wisdom that I've received from this man, and that's all I'll say. Just to thank you. To thank you.
After years at JTS and 6 years at a congregation in Pennsylvania, your next stop on your professional career was here to beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan, where, during your job interview, you met this person.
Of all the applicants, and there were a bunch, you were the one invited to lunch.
That seems good. And do you recognize that voice? I certainly do. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Feinerman. So now, Carol, tell us about the early days in the search. Now, I know your husband, Aaron, chaired the search committee.
Yes. I was not on the committee, and I really stayed away from everything that was going on. At one point, there were a bunch of application letters that came in, and I said to Aaron, do you mind if I read any of them? And he said, sure, go ahead. And the one thing that I remember is that the one from Rabbi Dobrusin was the one that really stood out. And when you came to lunch at my house for the first time, I don't know if you remember this, but Aaron pulled the car into the garage, and you came into my house through the garage and the kitchen, and I was so embarrassed about the whole thing. I thought, you don't remember that? Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. Okay. We've had lots and lots of memories over the last 30 years, but the one that stands out is the trip to Israel. That was my fellow travelers, okay? That was really something. The big thing for me was when we went rafting down the Jordan River. In one raft, there were, you get this, the rabbi, Rob Dobrusin, the presidents of the congregation, Carol Feinerman, the ritual assistant and his wife, Ron and Lonnie Sussman, a board member, Sarah Jane Winkleman, the rabbi's son, Avi, and my grandson, Gary Feynman, who says he remembers the experience very well, and by the way, he and my kids all send their love. That was a big thing. We said if anything happened on that raft, we would be in big trouble.
Be a lot more people having to do a lot more Torah reading.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Please.
Go ahead. And the last thing I want to say is, with thanks to Mary Schumann, who saved archival material pertinent to the search, I would like, and I have his permission from David Schoen, remarks written on the occasion of the 10th anniversary celebration honoring you. 20 congregants crowded into the Feineman's home for our first meeting with Rabbi Dobrusin. The meeting must have given him pause, for as warm and welcoming as we were, we also represented the widest range of the Beth Israel family, from shul regulars to farmers market regulars, from Likudniks to laborites, from feminists to the Old Boys Network, new parents and new grandparents, academics and business leaders. Rabbi Dobrusin saw the good in all of us, told jokes with a message, expressed his long-suffering loyalty to the Boston Red Sox, and patiently answered all our questions. We knew he was the perfect fit for all of us who met him that day, and we also knew what a great leader and friend he would be for our children. And that is true.
A couple of things. First of all, I don't remember Red Sox fans ever suffering. I don't know. I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, I remember being on that raft, and I remember the concern we had for the future of the congregation at that one moment. Even though the water in the Jordan River was about 2 feet deep, as I recall, we were just really worried. But a couple of things, since we're talking about that. That trip stands out in my mind, in my memory, as an extraordinary experience, and thank you for mentioning it, and I know others have talked to me about it this evening, and the other trips that we've taken, certainly. But to go back to the original statement, Aaron Zichrono Livracha was just was so kind to me, and so wonderful to me during that process. And so many people were, in fact, in those early days, so to speak, so kind to me as I came here and as I got acclimated into the community. I'm not going to mention everyone. I do want to just mention Vic Gallatin, Alava Shalom, who performed the absolute important task of taking me into Michigan Stadium for the first time. You know, that was of critical importance to me. And really, everybody was so kind and so welcoming. And it was a wonderful experience. Here we are.
Well, we were delighted to have you come and delighted that you have stayed with us for so long.
Well, you kept making rum balls, so I had to stay.
And Carol, one last question for you. Do you remember the first line of the job ad when we were searching for Rabbi Dobrusin?
I don't have it in front of me, but it was, I think we are seeking a mensch, and boy, did we find one.
Yes, indeed. Keeping our mind on those early days here, you've obviously in your years here had the opportunity to work with many lay leaders of the congregation, and we're wondering, do you remember this particular leader?
So way back in 1989, on the very first congregational trip to Israel, I was part of that journey, and we got to learn one very important lesson. Our tour guide, Ronnie, taught us there would be 2 stops on the trip, coffee in and coffee out. And from that, we learned a lot and spent a lot of time together on that very eventful trip.
And we'll welcome Steve Klein.
So we'll try not to embarrass you too much tonight on the memories from the first trip.
I know, Steve, we talked about some memories from the first trip. Would you care to share some good ones?
Well, it was very interesting, and that Shira and I were the only married couple on that trip. We had 2 singles with us at that time, a gentleman to my left and a lady sitting over here, who we will just point out and not embarrass too much. But that made the trip very interesting for, not that I was a chaperone in any way, but it was a different point in time. So the other thing that I was going to become the new president when my term started, and you were the new rabbi. So I think we kept talking about what it was going to be like to be the new team at Beth Israel. Now we look back, it's been a lot has happened in that new team. So, yeah.
So I guess, Rob, is there a course like in the rabbinical, curriculum about, coming to a congregation as a single rabbi and the etiquette of that must have been one heck of a
Well, let me answer that question by saying this. There may be, but I didn't know about it. But the important point is that neither did the 2 or 3 congregants who invited the 2 of us to dinner separately, obviously. I mean, to the same dinner, but without telling each other who was going to be there. So since those 2 or 3 congregants broke whatever rule might have existed, it just made it, that's all. I don't have to say anything more about that.
No, I think we're good. I think we're good. So what was it like breaking in a new rabbi?
I don't know if I broke Rob in or Rob broke me in, but we spent a lot of time at breakfast. We had a monthly breakfast meeting where we would sort of talk about the agenda for the upcoming meeting. A lot of meals at Cafe Marie, in the old Cafe Marie, before they moved to North Campus. Yeah. So we would sort
That's
of...
where we would normally meet.
Normally. That's another inside right? We were both new and trying to change things, and congregations and most people don't like change, so we dealt with change, new things, right?
And that first trip to Israel, and we're talking a lot about trips to Israel, but that first trip to Israel was truly a wonderful experience, especially since it was only a year after I came here, and we really got it together quickly and had a great time, and even survived Ron, who was a tremendous tour guide. Ron,
yeah.
He was a great tour guide, but he was a little unpredictable. A little
right.
Unpredictable, shall we say.
And then he and you would discuss things in Hebrew, thinking very sneaky things were going to happen, but you forgot that Shira was fluent. So I had a little insider telling me what was really going to happen on those trips. So yeah, a lot of fun things. So,
any one good story of an unpredictable tour guide that you'd like to share?
I don't know.
Well, I can tell you one story. We were there over Hanukkah, and we were driving down the road towards the Dead Sea, and it was just after dark, and we were on that dark road, and we passed by a little shelter where some soldiers were sitting, and they had a menorah lit, and somebody said, "Gee, we should really sing to them. We should really join them for Hanukkah." Ron slammed on the brakes and backed the van up. God, it must have been half a mile, and said, don't say things like that unless you want to do it. And of course we wanted to do it, but we didn't think that we were going to back up halfway down there. So that was just one example.
He was spontaneous, to say the least. Right.
I would just say thank goodness you both survived that night, because otherwise we could not have raised as much money in tonight's fundraiser as we did. So thank goodness for that. So, all right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you all. All right. Thanks, Rob.
You having fun? See, tell me if you're still saying that, and 3 more people. Okay, good. So your influence obviously has been very large within this congregation, but it's also been quite a strong influence you've had in the greater Ann Arbor community, and that's typified by this voice we're about to hear.
You can imagine how lonely I was in this alien tiger country as a member of Red Sox Nation, and how fortunate I was when Beth Israel had the wisdom to call Rob Dobrusin as its rabbi, a man who was a member of Red Sox Nation from birth, if not before. We have had great times going to games, discussing things via email, telephone, and in person, and we have enjoyed the 3 remarkable world championships we've had since we have been in Ann Arbor, including that moment in 2004 when we were able to humiliate the Yankees completely and go on to win the World Series. Rob, you have been a blessing in my life in many respects, but this was the first way because we discovered we were Red Sox fans when we had lunch a few weeks after you came to Ann Arbor. And I thank you for that, and thank you for the years we've had together.
So join me in welcoming Ken Pfeiffer from Unitarian Universalist. So I guess a question for both of you, men of faith, men who have led faith communities. In the darkest moments of despair in Red Sox history and in the Red Sox saga, did you believe you'd live to see the day when it would happen?
Well, I can't speak for Rabbi Dobrusin, but I can remind some of you who may remember that in 2004, as you were celebrating the 25th anniversary of your building, you invited me to spend a few moments on the Bema. And I remember that I pointed out to you how fortunate you were to have a man of such uncompromising and persistent faith as to continue to believe in the Boston Red Sox despite what was then an 86-year drought in world championships. And although I am not wearing them tonight, I wore red socks to celebrate that. Tonight I have Boston Red Sox and a Boston Red Sox tie and a cap that Rabbi Dobrusin gave to me. This is a great conversation starter. People have identified the language as Farsi, as Burundi, as 25 other things. Here and there, somebody knows Hebrew and recognizes what it says. And I know you all know what it says. You can read it, of course. So, a man of faith right here.
And never stopped believing for a moment. But it is amazing that there are some of us Red Sox fans here in the congregation and in the community, and we have a way of binding together and bonding together. And now, of course, we're looked on as those spoiled fans who had 3 world championships, and that, I don't care. It's wonderful. It's great.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Absolutely.
But I also just want to say, so that it doesn't, so that people don't miss this point, that while we talk a lot about the Red Sox, we've talked about a lot of things. And my connection with you, Ken, has meant so much to me and so much in my life as a rabbi.
It's mutual, Rob, let me assure you. You know, Jeff, when Jeff was sending me emails about what he wanted me to do tonight, he mentioned a word I'd never seen before. I'd seen part of the word, but I hadn't seen the whole word. The word he mentioned was menschness. And I'd seen the word mensch, but I wasn't certain about that menschness business. But I thought about it, and I thought about right here is a man who fits the definition of mensch. And somebody has already said that, and I heard it and I agreed with it. And let me just tell you why I think that very briefly. First of all, this is a man who is calm, who is deeply centered in himself.
Front row, do we want to vote on
Okay,
this?
I want the first row to be quiet. And I shall continue, okay? Secondly, he's learned. I have never heard Rob ask a question in our interfaith gatherings. I have never myself asked him a question that he has not found some appropriate saying that comes from the Torah, the prophets, one of the Talmuds, and other writings. And it has helped me enormously to understand better what Judaism is all about, what the Jewish people have been all about. And I'm deeply appreciative of that. And I would mention one other thing, and that is how generous he is. He is generous. I have seen this in the interfaith roundtable meetings that we've had, because he's open to listening to what other people say and to hearing what they have said. He is open to the different ways people have of expressing their spiritual understandings. And that has helped me a lot to grow. And I must mention one other thing. This man is so generous that he has, wrongly I should say, taken upon himself the blame for the 6th game loss in the 1986 World Series. He wants Bob Stanley he wants Bob Stanley and Billy Buckner not to feel bad. The truth is, I am responsible for that loss. I was downstairs watching. It was Sunday morning at 1:45. I'm a preacher, and I had to preach in a few hours. I thought, they got the game. I'll just go upstairs and watch the finish of it. And of course, by the time the game was over, they had lost it. And if I had just stayed where I was, we would have won the game. But Rob, ever generous, talk about a true mensch, a man who represents menschness right here.
Okay, Rob.
For 32 years, I've taken the blame for that. Now I don't have to do it anymore. Now I know it was your fault.
You don't have to do it anymore.
So, Ken, thank you so much for being with us. And And I just want to say here that a lot of people talk about Bill Buckner, but if you go back and watch a video of that 10th inning of Game 6 of the '86 World Series, Rich Gedman's passed ball on the pitch that Mookie Wilson got out of the way was an equally important thing.
But I have a question. Why are we talking about this now? It's such pain.
I want to remember
such
this.
Pain.
I want to remember. You've had so many championships since then. Stop being greedy. So when you've been in a community for 30 years, you get to know people and you get to know families and you get to stay with families through lots of life cycle events, including the ones that this person will talk about.
One of the wonderful things about living in this community for most of my life has been the opportunity to have Rob as a multi-generational presence in my family. Rabbi Dobrusin officiated my bat mitzvah in his first year as a rabbi and officiated my son's bar mitzvah in the start of his last year as head rabbi. In between, he officiated our marriage, the brises of two of my sons, taught two of my kids at the Hebrew Day School, and worked closely with my father. This last relationship deserves to be highlighted. I am fairly certain that, besides my mom, Rob is my father's closest confidant and one of his very best friends. For my father's sake, I am so glad you're not leaving Ann Arbor. As a preteen, I thought no rabbi could take the place of Rabbi Kensky. When you first came, I thought you were shy and quiet and definitely did not have the beautiful singing voice of Rabbi Kensky, but I figured we would give you a chance. I'm so glad that, for my children, you are their platonic form of rabbi.
Mira Sussman. Mira, you're feeling comfortable up here on the bima?
A little awkward. Like,
So,
not as good as Judah. He's much more comfortable.
so it's quite the coincidence that you were in the first year and Matan was in the last year. That's
Crazy. I timed it.
That's good. Stop.
I love making Jeff blush.
Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. So there's been obviously a very long connection between the Sussman family and the Dobbrusins over the years. So Rob, when do you remember kind of getting to know the Sussman family early on and working with Ron all those years?
Nice stories, please.
Oh, only nice stories. Well, first of all, I do remember that it was the first year that I was here. It was in the spring, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I remember it. No, it was, and it was a great experience for me to get to know your family because I knew that they had been involved in camp for so long in Tavor, and that was a connection that we had since I myself had a lot of background in camping and in Jewish camping. And I think that over the years, it's just amazing, and I'm going to just generalize from your experience to others, to be able to see the generations and to work with people of different generations and to see, it hasn't always been as dramatic as a bar mitzvah, and a bat mitzvah and a bar mitzvah, but to see the generations and to work with people in different phases in their lives and to now be part of 4 generations in your family here in this congregation is just so meaningful. And to the work that I've done with your dad has just been so important to me and so important to the congregation. And that friendship is very strong, of course, and it's just wonderful to think about it.
So 30 years later, you're okay that the congregation got a new rabbi after Rabbi Kensky?
I mean, I'm okay now.
Okay.
How's the singing voice? No, don't go into that now.
Fun fact about... I'm not going to go there. No, fun fact is that I used to wear Rabbi Kensky's snow pants when I was in like 5th and 6th grade. And I never got a chance to wear your snow pants.
Thank you, Mary.
I don't even know what to say. Very, very rarely have I been speechless on the Bema. I think.
Thank you, Mary.
Are you?
No. Yeah. Linda's signaling, get the hook. Thank you. That was not in the script, not in the script. And 30 years, we've spoken to some folks who were very active in the hiring process and early on in your time, and we've also had lots of lay leaders who you've worked with later on in your career here, including this person.
My term as president and your last 2 years as rabbi were an interesting time, to say the least. But we had our shared love of classic TV shows to get us through, especially I Love Lucy. My favorite episode involved Lucy and Ethel wrapping chocolates frantically, trying to keep up with the fast-moving conveyor belt. What they thought would be a relatively easy job turned out to be more challenging than either of them expected, as the conveyor belt kept speeding up and the chocolates kept coming faster and faster. I know how they felt. And I think you do too. And I was honored to play Ethel to your Lucy during your last years as senior rabbi at Beth Israel.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Carbeck. So, the 2 years that you worked together as rabbi and president, uneventful.
Quiet, yeah, there was not much going on, yeah. Kind of dull.
What qualities did Rob bring to the job of rabbi that you'll remember and think about?
Just insight to what the congregation as a whole needed at any given time, what needed to be focused on, and how he kept the concerns of everyone, all the different groups and interests and demographics in mind. It was amazing that he kept all the balls in the air as much as he did. It was tremendous.
It's very hard for me to understand what it must mean to be the president of a synagogue. I mean, I see it from one perspective, but it is such an astounding responsibility. And Bob, and I'm going to say this about all of the presidents I served with, but since you're sitting next to me, I'll certainly say it about you. It was such an honor to work with you and to be part of this relationship. And I can honestly say, and I know that very few rabbis can say this, and you can chalk it up to whatever you want to chalk it up to. The relationship that I have had with the presidents of this congregation has been so smooth and so mutual and so mutually respectful that it's made part of my job so much easier and so much more pleasant and so much more manageable than it would have been otherwise. And so I'll say it to you to thank you, but I'll say it to all of the people, and not just the president, but the board members as well, but particularly since we're talking here, thank you. I know this has not been 2 easy years, and but we've had our breakfast. You know, Steve Klein mentioned the breakfast at Cafe Marie. We've had breakfast at the Broken Egg, right? So, you know, same thing, yes, Broken Egg, times. Cafe Marie, you know, whatever it is. And it's been such a pleasure and such an honor. And thank you for all you've done.
So Bob, I know, Bob, in preparation for this day that you've been spending a lot of time deeply studying the Hebrew texts and the Talmud and the Gematria. and really trying to understand at a very deep level the spiritual magnitude and importance of 30 years at a congregation. What's the biggest insight, gematria-wise, that you've gained about these 30-year thing?
Johnny Carson. Johnny served 30 years as the host of The Tonight Show. And I just watched a biography of him the other night and remember when he retired, when he left, thinking, as I think all of America did, who's going to be the next Johnny Carson? And of course, there was no next Johnny Carson. Others have been in there, done things their own way, but there was only one. So who's going to be the next Rob Dobrusin? There is no next Rob Dobrusin.
Doing okay so far? Yeah, no, we're doing all right.
Are we doing a Karnak routine now?
Yeah.
No.
So we have one more person hiding behind the curtain who has something to say to you, and I think this one will be very special.
Rob, this is not the end, but rather a new beginning. I'm sure it was wonderful for you to see your life in the rabbinate here in Ann Arbor reviewed. One remembrance that we chose not to mention was when your tallit went missing. Unfortunately, despite turning home and synagogue upside down and inside out, it never was found. As you, we all were desolate. At that time, you couldn't remember because you never knew. Martha Kransdorf suggested that the congregation gift you with a new tallit on your retirement. And you also didn't know, but you will now, the miracle that ensued.
Helen Amanoff.
You'll find out in a minute. My kids want you to know how much they.
Helen, tell us a story.
I'll tell you a story. First of all, I'd like to introduce miracle workers and master weaver, Mary Jane Olson and Marla Smith, who are somewhere here in the audience, I hope. Please rise. They were the ones who were most familiar with your tallit because they had indeed made the hems to repair that wonderful tallit. All right? What we didn't know at the time was that they had also taken pictures of your tallit. Okay? When I contacted Mary Jane, she was on a mission in Haiti with her friend Marla. It was only a few weeks ago, but it seems like just a few weeks ago, maybe a month, I don't know. And I asked them if they would be prepared to make a new tallit for you. Time was short, very short. Obstacles were there, but they jumped in. And they agreed to make you a new tallit. What they did, in fact, was they cloned your own tallit, the one that Ann Sickles had made for you 30 years ago. And you are, they just, very few small deviations from the cloning. Right? The corners had to be sewn in. That was achieved by Carol Feineman. Together, and she had to sew the holes to make for the seat to go through. That was achieved by Carol with Michelle McCallow's guidance at the Ann Arbor Sewing Center. Seat, yeah, it was a big project. Seat had to be halakhically tied and knotted and all that. And Carol and I and our mentor and guide, Aviva Panush, and the internet helped us. That left just one problem, the height. We did not know your measurement from your neck down. And Ellen could be of no help to us at all. Anyway, without further fanfare, and with very deep gratitude to Mary Jane and to Marla, who refused to accept any payment for this wonderful miracle, where they, of course, will be getting a very substantial donation to their Haitian mission. I would like to present, I've been given the privilege and the honor of presenting to you your retirement gift from Beth Israel congregation. And I'm serving it on a silver, not the platter. On a silver platter.
Thank you so much.
I'll take the platter back. Please.
I am absolutely speechless. I am, put it on? I am absolutely, at night you know where I, no, I am absolutely speechless, and that doesn't happen too often. To Carol, to Aviva, who am I leaving out? To the internet, to Helen, to everyone. Thank you so. This is just beyond anything that I expected, and I have to tell you that because I did tell you and I've told other people how sad this was for me and how upsetting this was for me, and I still don't know where it is, and I still don't know who has it, but I don't care now. No, but this is just wonderful and so deeply appreciated.
It's an expression.
Yeah.
Tit Chadesh.
Yeah, thank you. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and you know why it's beautiful? Because it looks just like it's a clone. It really is.
It is a clone.
It really is.
It is a clone.
Fantastic.
The knobs are a little bit different.
You know something? Nothing should be exactly the same, but thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
And so, Rabbi Dobrusin, this is your life here at Beth Israel Congregation and in Ann Arbor. I hope it is clear to you from our presentations this evening and from the many conversations I know you have been having with congregants just how meaningful your time here has been. Thank you on behalf of all of us for all the sermons you shared and for all the classes you taught. Thank you for taking the ancient and modern teachings of our tradition and applying them to our world, offering us another lens through which we can make sense what's going on. Thank you for your friendship and for being there with us at our moments of greatest joy and greatest sorrow. Your words and your presence have always meant so much. And if the congregation will indulge me one personal comment, thank you for providing our sons, one of them an aspiring rabbi, with a model of wisdom, decency, and compassion. Your life here at Beth Israel has shown so many of us how much a rabbi can add to the lives of those in the community and how much of a positive role model a community's rabbi can be. I can think of no greater wish for my son than that his rabbinate make a difference in his community in the way yours has made a difference in ours. We are grateful for all you have done, and we are grateful for who you are. Thank you, Rob. It seems only fair, after 30 years, to give Rabbi Dobrusin the last word. Now, before we do so, two quick things. First of all, I want to remind you that following Rabbi Dobrusin's remarks, we'll be serving dessert in the back. And please eat, yeah. And finally, to introduce Rabbi Dobrusin, I have the honor of presenting his children, Avi and Mickey Dobrusin.
When they first asked us to introduce our dad this evening, we thought it might be best to just contribute our silence and not say anything at all. After all, could we really talk about our dad for 2 to 3 minutes without embarrassing him?
Of course we couldn't. So here's one quick story. As many of you know, our dad has an outstanding memory. He remembers all sorts of things, from people to directions to places. Well, there's one thing he doesn't remember. When we all went on a cruise for Arvi's bar mitzvah, we all enjoyed the crab apple ice cream that the ship had to offer for dessert. Well, at least 3 of us remember. My dad has no recollection of it. The story has lived on in Dobrusin lore as the one thing my dad has forgotten over the many years.
With the embarrassing part out of the way, now let's get on to the more flattering part. Since most of you know our dad is the rabbi, we thought we'd give you a brief glimpse into what he's like as an actual dad.
Many of the qualities that make him a great rabbi also make him the world's best dad. He is loving, dependable, patient, and loyal. What you might not know is that he can also be really silly, like when he pretends to fight with you in front of security cameras.
Push you out of the way just a little bit. As a dad, one of his best qualities is his ability to find the life lesson in any situation. Whether it is helping you with homework or dealing with challenging friendships, our dad is always willing to help and teach us, and we are always ready to learn from his wisdom and experiences, such as when I learned some new vocabulary words after dropping a bet on his foot in Israel.
So as not to embarrass him anymore, it is our honor to introduce our dad, Rabbi Robert Dobrusin.
Wow, thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. I am not going to speak for long for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I spoke yesterday morning about the importance of being able as a rabbi to give people the opportunity to see something more in life and something deeper in life, and I'm going to put that sermon up someplace on the website or whatever. Also because I spoke a month ago at our Shabbat morning service about what it meant to be a rabbi here at Beth Israel. And thirdly, because dessert is out there and I'm kind of anxious to see what's there. You know, I was thinking today about a lot of things, and first, I guess I should start by saying thank you to everyone. First of all, to the committee, who has put together just this fantastic evening. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to my family, Avi and Mickey, for introducing. That really surprised me. I had no idea that was coming. I'm so glad that you did it. It meant so much to me. Thank you to the people who spoke here. Thank you to everybody. To Ellen for all that I couldn't even begin to say, and you know that. Thank you to all the members of the congregation. And thank you to the sponsors of the evening, whom I hope to be able to thank personally in the months to come, in the weeks to come, months to come. I got some time, in the weeks to come. And thank you all to all who contributed to the fundraiser and to making this congregation such an important part of your lives. It was mentioned before, Bob mentioned before about the project of the chapel renovation, which is something that is deeply important to me because of what it can mean to the congregation, and also because it would be such a fitting way to honor my father, Alav Shalom, and my father-in-law, Alav Shalom, who were so inspirational to me in so many different ways, and for whom synagogues were their second home. And it's so important to me, and I'm so grateful to all the contributions, so thank you to everyone. I was thinking a lot today about the process of writing a sermon. I've written a few in my time, and it occurred to me that writing the beginning of the sermon is easy. It's writing the ending that's really the most difficult. And I can say that here today, it's very difficult to find the words. I will say this, though. It's not an ending. First of all, it's not an ending for me because, God willing, I'm planning on continuing my writing, continuing teaching, continuing doing some rabbinic work and some non-rabbinic work as well, and volunteer work, etc., continuing my own writing, and doing hopefully some of it here at Beth Israel, perhaps in time, and that will be very important to me. But it's also not an ending for you by any means. This is the beginning of a new era for the congregation. I came here, this congregation had a fantastic foundation. I followed a wonderful rabbi who had led this congregation for 17 years and was able to feed off that strength and feed off that stability and to move the congregation forward. And I honestly and sincerely believe and pray that that is exactly what's going to happen in the months and years to come. That we've built on a great foundation, we've strengthened that foundation, and la'ela ula'ela, as the tradition says, higher and higher. And I'm sure that will happen with this congregation, and I hope it will. And not only do I hope it will, but I want to see it happen. And one of the great things right now for me to think about is that we are staying in Ann Arbor. I'm going to step back a little bit, as you can imagine, for a while, because I want Rabbi Kane to be able to establish himself, and I want to be able to step back. But I want to watch also, because I want to watch the congregation continue to grow. And I also want to watch and be part of our friendships continue to grow. It's not going to be easy for me not to answer rabbinic questions, but I can't and I won't. But to be friends, always. Several people have said to me, you know, I always wanted to have lunch together with you, but it didn't seem to quite work out, but now you'll have time to have lunch. That will be wonderful. And it'll be wonderful to be able to see our friendships strengthen and to see them continue to grow, but with the complete understanding and complete awareness of the fact that the congregation is going to move on with a new leader who will do great things with this congregation. I said to you 6 weeks ago when we had our service on Shabbat morning that one of the things I said was to thank you all for allowing me to be the rabbi I always wanted to be. And that really is the most important thing. You've given me the opportunity to do the things that I wanted to do and to do them the way I wanted to do them. I had to change some things a little bit, but that's the way things go. I will never forget that. I will be eternally grateful for that. And I just hope that we can always not only remember good times, but that the congregation can create good times and important times and meaningful times and uplifting times as the years go along. You all mean the world to me. Thank you so much.